What is going on, everyone? My name is Jamon McKinney, but of course you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, into the Juice Alert. If you have not subscribed to the Juice Alert already, be sure to do that right about now. You will not regret it. You can find the Juice Alert on YouTube as well as podcasting platforms. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that great stuff. If you enjoy what you are listening to, hearing, and or watching, be sure to leave this episode a like on YouTube. And if you're listening on a podcasting platform or network, be sure to leave this show a great rating and review and share with all your family and friends. These things definitely help me out in terms of feedback regarding this show, and it helps to expand and grow the audience. You know, today, jam-packed topics for you guys today. We're mainly just talking about basketball today, and I want to jump right in, but before I do actually get started, also follow me on social media. All my social media links, the links to all my social media accounts, there is a description of this episode. Just take a couple minutes or seconds out of your day, rather, to just maybe screenshot those, jot those down. Follow me on social media. It would definitely be appreciated, and you can get, instant access and kind of behind-the-scenes looks as to who I am and things of that nature, and also sports as well, of course. I want to jump right in. The Boston Celtics are your 2024 NBA champions. They win the NBA Finals in 5 games over the Dallas Mavericks. And once I saw the NBA Finals matchup, that matchup being Mavericks versus Celtics, it was pretty easy for me to pick the Boston Celtics to win this NBA Finals. Just because, look, I understand that, Luka Dončić is on pace to be an all-time great player. I understand Kyrie Irving is one of the best point guards in the NBA still to this day. I understand Jayson Kidd, is a really, really good head coach. I think that he's probably in the category for most underrated head coach in the NBA right now. But when you look at Boston, over the last 8 years, they've been to 6 conference finals and 1 NBA finals appearance heading into this. And now this was their second NBA finals appearance. But this was a core that was put together a while back, kind of, Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, things of that nature. And they've been knocking on the door for quite a while. And I just kind of felt like Boston was one of the few teams that really could force Luka Dončić to hustle on both ends of the court. Like, they were going to force him to make tough shots on offense, and they were going to expose him probably on defense. And that's exactly what happened. And right now, the Boston Celtics have the most NBA championships for the time being. The Boston Celtics are back to being the number 1 brand in all of basketball. The number 1 basketball brand right now is the Boston Celtics. Most championships ever up to this point in NBA history. They nailed the general manager. Joe Mazzulla seems to be a really good young head coach that they believe in. I think he's going to stick around for a long time. Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown have an argument for potentially best duo in the entire NBA. You look at the scouting department, the fact that Boston is aggressive in terms of making trades, acquiring guys like Jrue Holiday, acquiring guys like Kristaps Porzingis. This is the number 1 basketball brand in America, in the world, quite frankly, I would say. The culture is set in Boston. Tough, hard-nosed team. They're good. They're not afraid to shoot threes. They're not all that flashy, but they get the job done. And I think Boston is the number 1 brand right now. Like I said, a lot of people consider the Lakers. The Lakers have been kind of on and off in terms of championship success and deep postseason runs over the past, I would say, 8 years. Meanwhile, Boston, even though both of them have only won 1 championship in the last 8 years or so, Boston's been making more deep postseason runs compared to the Lakers. And Boston set the precedent of, well, I shouldn't say the precedent, but they set an example of, okay, even when our potential superstar level player, Jayson Tatum, is struggling, we can still win basketball games. And there's a lot of commentary about Jayson Tatum. I'll just say right here, right now, he is much more closer to being looked at as a Clyde Drexler type player compared to a Julius Erving type player in terms of the projection of his legacy. Like, if I were to say, Jayson Tatum, where's he going to rank all time? He'll be much more closer to the Clyde Drexlers of the world compared to the Julius Ervings of the world. But that's a good thing for Boston to a degree. And let me explain, because Tatum probably is never going to quite be the best player in the world. So you think, oh man, our number one superstar guy, the guy that we marketed, he can never be the best player in the world. Are we screwed? Are we never going to win a championship? No, that's not the case. Boston, at times, even won in spite of Jayson Tatum's bad shooting slump. So it gives a lot of other teams hope that, hey, even if our number one guy isn't a generational talent, isn't a LeBron James or a Kevin Durant or a Stephen Curry, we can still win. That's the whole point I'm making. And a lot of people made out the fact that, oh, Boston, easy road to the finals. First of all, people, in the regular season, you play to get the highest seed possible. You want to know why? Because when you get the highest seed possible, more than likely, the matchups are more favorable in the playoffs. It's a lot easier, I would say 8 to 9 times out of 10, being a 1 seed versus being a 6 seed, because you get the more favorable matchups. In Boston, all regular season, they worked their tails off, and they earned the best record in basketball. And let's be real, people. Everyone said, oh, Miami had injuries, Cleveland had injuries, Indiana had injuries. I understand the thought process of, okay, if all those teams were fully healthy, they would have put up a better fight versus Boston. I'll give you that. And maybe Boston is a little bit more worn out once they get to the NBA Finals. That's a fair critique. But let's be real, people. Was the Miami Heat, the Cleveland Cavaliers, or the Indiana Pacers, do you really believe they were going to beat this Boston Celtics team 4 times in a best-of-7 series, even with the healthy squad? I personally did not see that happening. Now, if Boston were to face a team like Minnesota or Denver in the NBA Finals, I probably would have picked against them, but they didn't face those teams. They got the luck of the draw. Dallas kind of overachieved a little bit. Luka Dončić playing out of his mind, kind of, got this team a little bit ahead of schedule in terms of the trajectory of their team, but that's not Boston's problem. Boston did exactly what they needed to do. They crushed the competition on their way to winning their NBA championship. The 2024 champions are the Boston Celtics. Most championships in NBA history for the time being. As I mentioned, congratulations, Boston. And by the way, they were a joy to watch. And I think that they're going to be a joy to watch for many years to come, as long as Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, the Joel Mazzuls of the world, as long as they stick around, Boston will be around for a long time. Congratulations, Boston. NBA champions, back on top. Number one brand in basketball right now in the world. So, there's been a lot of commentary about Jayson Tatum. And Jayson Tatum is only 26 years old. He's already an NBA champion. Already been a first-team All-NBA player. And here's the thing about Jayson Tatum. I think what is going to separate him from his peers is potentially his resume in terms of winning. Because here's the thing. Jayson Tatum doesn't have the skill set of a Stephen Curry where he's an elite shooter. He's not Anthony Edwards, where Anthony Edwards is a once-in-a-generation type athlete. I've said Anthony Edwards compares to Michael Jordan in terms of his dunking and leaping ability, in terms of his ability to explode above the rim. He's Michael Jordan-esque in that regard. Even a guy like Victor Wembanyama. Victor can handle the basketball at times like a point guard. Not quite, maybe, but he's pretty decent with his handles. And the guy is, 7'5"? Has elite defensive capabilities. Jayson Tatum just doesn't have that. But what's going to separate Tatum potentially is he's potentially going to be looked at as the guy in his era that wins a ton if he continues to stack up championships. And he has the potential to do that because he's a good player and because Boston is going to put him in a good position to succeed more years than not. He has an advantage. He plays for arguably the number one brand in all basketball. There's a reason why they're NBA champions right now. But here's the thing. In the past, I called Jayson Tatum overrated and said he's not a top 5 player in the NBA and that he's not an elite level superstar. And I think some of those critiques were fair. If you were to argue otherwise, there is an argument to be made that I was maybe missing something with Jayson Tatum. But here's the thing. When I looked at Jayson Tatum, I said, man, elite level superstar? Did you see him in his first NBA Finals versus the Golden State Warriors? The guy was shooting 36% from the field and had a bunch of turnovers. That's not an elite level superstar. That's not what it looks like to me. And even in these playoffs, on the way to the championship, we got to give him credit for the games he played well in. But there was at least a 7-game stretch where he was in a legitimate shooting slump. And in the NBA Finals, he really didn't shoot it all that well either. So you're like, man, elite level superstars, the Kevin Durant's of the world, the LeBron James of the world, they don't go through 8-game stretches where they're in a legitimate bad shooting slump. So I think I'm still right about Tatum not being an elite level superstar. But regardless, it no longer matters if Jayson Tatum is an elite level superstar in terms of at least him playing for the Boston Celtics. Because here's the thing. The Boston Celtics won the championship with Jayson Tatum being featured potentially as the guy. It no longer matters. These conversations of, what is Jayson Tatum? Is he ever going to be the best player in the world? They're irrelevant now because Boston won the championship. It does not matter. It's kind of I wouldn't put Jayson Tatum in an all-time great category, but this is a little mini example. David Ortiz. Everyone talks about, David Ortiz, he never played defense. It doesn't matter. He won a bunch of championships with the Boston Red Sox. He smacked a bunch of home runs. I'm good. I don't need David Ortiz to play elite defense. I don't need Jayson Tatum to be the best player in the world. I just won a championship. It was the same thing with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Everyone said, Giannis is not all that skilled. And some of it was a fair critique, but once Giannis won the championship, it's like, his weaknesses no longer matter. Lamar Jackson, 2-time league MVP in the NFL, has some glaring weaknesses to his game, but it really doesn't matter because Baltimore wins a shit ton of games, and Lamar Jackson is awesome, 2-time league MVP. Even people talk about Russell Wilson still to this day. Russell Wilson, he's like 5'10", he's a little too short. Russell Wilson is a Super Bowl champion, okay? It doesn't matter because he got it done when it mattered the most in his prime. And the one thing I can respect about Jayson Tatum in these past NBA Finals versus the Dallas Mavericks is that when his shot wasn't falling, when he wasn't shooting at a high percentage, he was still finding ways to contribute to winning basketball games. He was rebounding at a high level. He was hustling back and forth on defense, defending at a high level, getting loose balls, setting screens for his teammates, being self-aware, motivating his team, kind of being a little bit of a vocal guy at times when he needed to be. Tatum, even though his shot wasn't quite falling in the NBA Finals, he still found a way to contribute to winning. And the scary thing for Jayson Tatum that no one's really seeming to talk about is that he won a championship recently on a team where he didn't perform his best. At times, Boston was succeeding in spite of his shooting, slump, But Tatum, you look at him and you're like, okay, only 26 years old, seems to at least probably have at least another good 5-year run left in him, maybe 5, 6, 7 more good years of Jayson Tatum. We'll see. This could be a motivating factor for him where it's like, okay, I didn't win the Finals MVP. I didn't perform my best in the NBA Finals. I still want to be in the best player in the league conversation. Let's take it up another level. And if Jayson Tatum plays like a top 3 player in the NBA, then Boston can repeat as champions and even shoot up to new heights. I don't think Boston, led by Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I don't think they're an all-time great team, but maybe they could prove me wrong. So all I'm saying is when it comes to Jayson Tatum, a lot of the commentary about him is kind of silly at this point. There's no more reason to talk about other than ranking all-time great players. There's no point of discussing, is Jayson Tatum an elite level superstar? It no longer matters for all the reasons that I mentioned. Congratulations, Jayson Tatum. You're an NBA champion, and I'm excited to see where he takes his career going forward. Let's talk about Luka Dončić. Luka Dončić is slowly but surely approaching best player in the world status. I think Luka Dončić, there's a world where there could be about a 3 to 4 year stretch where he could legitimately punch his ticket to being the best player in the entire world regarding basketball. And I said when Luka Dončić first entered the league, I saw the first couple games he played, his rookie season. I said, yep, if this guy stays relatively healthy, he's going to eventually eclipse 30,000 career points. He's on pace to do so. Has best player in basketball potential. And Look, will Luka Dončić ever get to best player in the world status? I mean, it remains to be seen. I'm not saying he's going to get there. All I'm saying is it's at least on the table. And I will admit, it's a very, very rocky road to get there because there's only been a couple of players that have held that best player in the world title. Guys like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. I believe Kobe Bryant held it for about a 4-year stretch. I actually believe Kevin Durant, once he got to Golden State, and even in the first couple of years in Brooklyn, he was in that conversation, was arguably the best player in basketball. Some people scratch their heads at me when I say that, but I fully believe that, especially when it comes to Kobe. Durant a little bit less, but you get the point. Here's the thing. Luka Dončić, let's focus on him. 6 years into his NBA career, only 25 years old. He's already made an NBA Finals appearance. He's been a 5-time first-team All-Pro. Keep in mind, that's more first-team All-Pro selections than Stephen Curry. He's won a scoring title, won Rookie of the Year, and 3 times he has finished in the top 5 in MVP voting. I'd argue this year Luka Dončić should have won the league MVP. I mean, the 2023-2024 MVP should have went to Luka, in my opinion. He had a 70-point game, 70-point performance this past season. 34 points per game, 9 rebounds, just shy of 10 assists per game. And the Dallas Mavericks won 50 games this season. Can we all at least admit that if you get to 50 wins on the season, you're at least eligible to win the league MVP? Like, that's at least a good enough baseline level. Like, yeah, 50 wins, I think that's good enough. And not to mention Kyrie Irving, he missed 24 games due to injury. And Luka was carrying the Dallas Mavericks. And here's the thing about Luka Dončić. In order for him to truly, truly get to that best player in the world circle, or at least take the title from a guy like Nikola Jokic, who I believe is holding the title currently right now, having won a championship, coming off an all-time great playoff run, and no one really necessarily surpassed Jokic this year, even though it's a lot more close. Luka's going to need to win an MVP because I don't think there's ever been a season where I looked at a player and said, oh yeah, he's the best player in the world and he's never won a league MVP. That doesn't make any sense. So win a league MVP and win an NBA championship. And that's very, very doable for Luka because he's an all-time great player. He was just top 3 in MVP voting this past season, and he was just in the NBA Finals. And as an offensive player, I mean, there's not very many players in the NBA history that are better than Luka Dončić. I think he's going to go down all time as a top 5 to top 10 all-time great offensive player. I think that he's going to be in that category. I mean, his ability to score with ease, pass the basketball, his intelligence, his competitive nature. Like Luka Dončić, if he's not at least considered for top 10 all-time status by the time his career is over, I think we're going to look back on Luka and say, man, I'm a little bummed out for him because he has the world in front of him. Now, will he reach this status? I'm not so sure because I'm not so sure what his future holds. I'm not sure if Dallas is going to be good enough to win the championship. And I'm not sure if Luka's going to work on his weaknesses. I'll get to those weaknesses a little bit later in the show, but Luka's going to have to work on his defense. He's going to have to work on, not complaining to the refs as much. There's little inks and irons and kinks that Luka needs to get better at. But I just think that he is slowly but surely starting to enter that best player in the world conversation, just winning an all-time great playoff run despite losing in the finals. And I think Luka, he has the world in front of him. Now, I just took all that time to praise Luka Dončić, and rightfully so. I think Luka is already in the conversation for best basketball player alive. There's Nikola Jokic at the top. Then you can look at Giannis. You can look at Luka Dončić. You can even look at a guy like Anthony Edwards, who shoved himself into that conversation recently. Joel Embiid is really, really good still, coming off, a really good season when he was healthy. Kevin Durant is still pretty high up on my list. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is really starting to enter these conversations as well as at least an elite-level superstar, I would say. But here's the thing. The 2024 NBA Finals fully exposed Luka Dončić. Luka Dončić is not quite the best player in the world. He's great, but he fell short of capturing that title this season. And here's the thing. The NBA Finals kind of exposes who the true all-time great performers are. It's kind of like Broadway. It's like, oh yeah, you see all these, good-looking people on Hollywood TV screen in theaters. But the reality is some of these guys, or women, I should say, they're not on Broadway doing a whole bunch of shenanigans. Like, if you can master Broadway and get to the big screen, that's when you really, really know who can act. Because, you don't get a bunch of takes over and over. It's raw, live performances. No do-overs, no fixing up things. Like, it's Broadway. It's live. You're exposed in front of everyone. Live performance, okay? And that's the thing about the NBA Finals is, you're not playing a team on a back-to-back. They're not super-duper fatigued. Everyone's hurt and injured just like you are. It's the NBA Finals. And a lot of players in the past have been to NBA Finals and have realized, man, I'm not quite as good as I thought I was. For an example, LeBron James, his first two NBA Finals wasn't that great of a shooter. 2011 versus Dallas, didn't hit a lot of jump shots, Same thing versus the Spurs. Spurs defense, threw a lot of looks at LeBron James, forced him to take a lot of tough jumpers, and he really didn't hit him. Stephen Curry, in his first two NBA Finals, was exposed on defense, was pushed around. The Cavaliers got physical with him. And Stephen Curry had to go back to the lab and say, okay, I need to get stronger. I need to get quicker on defense. I need to put in more work, despite how great I am. And that's the challenge I throw out to Luka Dončić. Is, Luka, you're so great that you can take it up another level. You can get to another level, Luka Dončić. You're that good of an all-time great player. And here's the thing about Luka. Here are some fair critiques from his most recent NBA Finals appearance. Luka Dončić shot 58% from the free throw line. 58% from the free throw line? The great Luka Dončić? That's not going to cut it. 24% from three-point range? That's just not going to cut it. That's abysmal by Luka Dončić's standards, And on defense, guys were just blowing by him. Constantly, just blowing by Luka Dončić. And it didn't seem like he cared all that much on defense. I mean, once the series was kind of out of hand, he tried a little bit better. But Luka's also fouling out of games. I mean, in a crucial Game 3, where if you win that game, you're right back in the series. You have to win Game 3 at home. Luka fouls out in the fourth quarter. And let me just, for all the people making excuses for Luka in that moment, let me ask you people, when is the last time you've seen an elite-level superstar foul out of an NBA Finals game? When's the last time a LeBron or a Magic Johnson fouled out of an NBA Finals game in a crucial, must-win Game 3 where you gotta have it? Just doesn't happen. Just doesn't happen. Gotta be more self-aware. And you could tell Luka was fatigued and worn down at times, and that was kind of by design in terms of what the Boston Celtics were looking to do. They were going to throw everything at Luka. They were going to force him to guard players on defense, and they were going to force him to hit tough shots on offense. And it worked by design. And I will challenge Luka Dončić to get in better peak physical condition. Because if he does that, if he gets in better shape, and by the way, Jayson Kidd has admitted multiple times Luka has come into training camp out of shape multiple times, and that's not good. But if Luka does that, he'll probably more than likely be able to stay more and more healthy, more and more durable, come late postseason. He'll probably be able to give a better effort on defense because he's much more conditioned while still being an all-time great, effective, offensive peak player. Like, in order for Dallas to win a championship led by Luka Dončić, in order for Luka to win a championship point-blank period, he has to be at his peak level performance in terms of just his offensive game. Like, Luka, that's his bread and butter, like his offense. Like, it's one of those things where, if Aaron Judge isn't hitting home runs, what are we talking about? Same thing with Luka Dončić. If Luka Dončić isn't putting the ball in the basket, isn't hitting a bunch of threes, isn't hitting a bunch of tough shots, if he's not putting up at least 32 points a game in these big high-leverage moments, what are we talking about? That's all I got to say. And there's a path for Luka. Because a guy like Nikola Jokic, who kind of plays similar to him, Nikola Jokic became an NBA champion because he got in better shape, because he invested more time into being a better, more committed defensive player, and Denver's roster improved. And what do you know? Nikola Jokic is on top of the world, NBA champion, takes the claim of, by many people's standards, best player in the world. There is a path for Luka Dončić. And by the way, Luka, stop complaining to the refs. Stop pouting. Stop crying. They're never going to respect you. They're never going to give you the benefit of the doubt if you continue to cry and whine like a little baby. Like, I'm sick and tired. Every time, oh, there's a questionable foul. Luka, he's flopping. He's complaining. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. You got to put on the big boy pants. Stop complaining so much. So that's how I feel about Luka. I do, like I said, believe he can reach best player in the world status, but certain things would need to change. And I think Luka will need to do some of the things that I mentioned in order to get to that mountaintop. We'll see if he can do it. Will he do it? We'll see. Comment what you think. I love to hear what you guys have to say. Boy, oh boy. The Los Angeles Lakers are in the headlines once again. JJ Redick is their new head coach. Now, if you don't know who JJ Redick is, he spent 15 years in the NBA playing as a basketball player. You know, that's over 900 regular season games. And if you count the playoffs, that's probably close to about 1,000 career NBA basketball games that JJ Redick has played between the regular season and the postseason. You know, he was on an NBA Finals team that nearly won a championship, you know, back when he was in Orlando. You know, he played basketball at Duke, one of the best programs in the country. You know, he has a great relationship with the great Coach K. You know, he's kind of dived a little bit into the podcasting world of recent. You know, LeBron James, you know, started a podcast with him. Now, obviously, with JJ Redick being the head coach, probably not going to be much of a podcaster. He's going to be committed to coaching the Lakers and, you know, specifically LeBron James. But here's the thing. Man, oh man, this came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, JJ Redick is getting so much steam this offseason of, oh yeah, potential Lakers head coach. And what do you know? We're here. And let me just say right here, right now, boy, oh boy, oh man, JJ Redick being named the Los Angeles Lakers head coach is leading me to say this is one of the biggest wild cards and arguably the biggest risk in NBA history. The Lakers hiring JJ Redick to be their head coach. Maybe, just maybe, the biggest risk in basketball history, maybe in sports history. This is the definition of someone never having a lead director role in a play with a bunch of sixth graders to all of a sudden now he's the lead director for a movie that's going to feature Denzel Washington and Adam Sandler as the two stars of the movie. Like, that's a huge jump. You're going from not even coaching up or directing pee-wee level guys to all of a sudden the best in the business. Anthony Davis, superstar level player, has won a championship. LeBron James, a Mount Rushmore type level all-time great NBA player. That's how good LeBron is. And LeBron, even entering age 40, he's still really, really good, in really, really good shape, you know? Imagine a chef not having gone through culinary school, not 1 second of it, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's landed a job with Gordon Ramsay. He's working alongside Gordon Ramsay. Never been to culinary school? What are you talking about here? And the thing is, for JJ Redick, he's going to be expected to perform. A lot of people don't understand in Hollywood, in television, any big business that you're working with, you know, they expect you to perform at a high level. There's no mercy, okay, being the Los Angeles Lakers head coach. Because here's the thing about Lakers fans. They don't care what you have done in the past. They only care about what you're doing for their current team. Look at a guy like Russell Westbrook, former league MVP, had been to an NBA Finals a long time ago with Kevin Durant, had a lot of success, was potentially a top 5 player in the game when he was at his best in his prime. And Lakers fans didn't care for him too much. We don't want to know why? Because Russell Westbrook didn't perform with the light shine the brightest. And let me just be the first to say right here, right now, and to be fair to JJ Redick, I think experience is wildly overrated. Because if a certain individual is just flat out better than everyone else, and just more skilled and more talented, he probably should be landing the job. I don't care if he's 25 years old or 40 years old. Give me the best available employee. Now, experience does hold some weight, but if you're not talented enough for the job, I don't care if you worked 40 years. I don't care if you clocked in 50 years of work. If you're not good enough, I don't need you on my roster. I don't need you on my staff. There's a certain threshold we have to meet here. So maybe JJ Redick is an exception. Maybe he is just so talented that it's not going to matter about his lack of experience being a basketball head coach. But I have to ask the question, what moment did the Lakers look at JJ Redick as, yeah, he's the number one guy? Because apparently the first guy that they really targeted was Dan Hurley. And Dan Hurley turned down the job. And that says a lot, okay? He turned down an opportunity to coach LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Turned down the opportunity to be the Lakers head coach. Now, obviously, he has a great job at UConn, but JJ Redick was not the Lakers' first option. If he was the first option, he would have been immediately hired. But I just have to ask the question, what was the moment? The Lakers said, yeah, JJ Redick has to be the guy. I don't know what that moment was. And I'm very curious what the Lakers are thinking right here. Now, I'm not saying JJ Redick is going to fail. I have no god darn idea what's going to happen. But all I'm saying is history shows us and tells us this is on pace to be potentially a disaster. It's on pace to potentially be a disaster. Because where are we starting from? What's JJ Redick's starting point? He doesn't have one. All of a sudden, he goes from hosting a podcast with LeBron to coaching LeBron James? Now, LeBron, let me ask you a question. That's kind of rhetorical, Just because you host a podcast with someone, does that automatically mean you want them to be your head coach? I'm just curious because it's almost like, oh yeah, I have a podcast buddy, but oh yeah, I'm going to work beside him at my job. He's going to be my CEO. I don't know. This JJ is walking on ice right here, but I will say this. Here are the good things about JJ Redick. I think if he's going to succeed, these will be the reasons why. First of all, I think he can really relate to players. He's been in the NBA before. He's been on postseason teams. He's played playoff basketball. He has a good relationship with LeBron James off the court. I think JJ is the type of guy that can relate to young players in the NBA and even veteran players. I think that they will respect him, at least just from a human being standpoint. He seems like a really good guy. From a competitive standpoint, I think JJ is a really competitive guy. It seems like he's a really smart basketball mind, and maybe he is the next Steve Kerr, where Steve Kerr didn't really have a whole lot of experience being a head coach, and boom, all of a sudden out of nowhere, he gets a chance to coach a potential all-time great player in Stephen Curry that turned into a legitimate all-time great player, and boom, what do you know? Steve Kerr is one of the best head coaches of all time, but we've seen guys like Derek Fisher, even Steve Nash, former two-time MVP. Didn't really work out for those guys, and not a lot of coaching experience, but you thought, oh yeah, basketball background, played in the NBA, could really relate to veteran players, maybe it's going to work, and it really didn't. Could it be a situation where it gets awkward? Because if players recognize that an assistant head coach has more experience and more gravity towards him compared to JJ Redick, are they going to start tuning JJ Redick out and going to the assistant? I'm not so sure, What's JJ Redick's scouting looking like, Can he draft and develop players? Is this a long-term thing? I have no idea. I cannot wait for it to happen and see what goes on. But all I'm saying is JJ Redick being hired by the Lakers, arguably the biggest wild card in basketball coaching history. I'm not even joking. I believe that fully, and we'll see how it goes. I cannot wait. But yeah, that's how I feel. And by the way, last but not least, is JJ Redick really coaching the Lakers if LeBron's not on the roster? Did LeBron not have something to do with this? LeBron, if you did, you better be happy what you wished for. You better be willing to take this heat, because if JJ struggles, you're going to have some of the blame thrown your way. That's just the reality of it. But ultimately, that's how I feel. Because here's the thing. LeBron James can say, I was left out of the coaching conversations, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. If LeBron was left out of the conversation, then he cannot complain to the Lakers organization if JJ Redick is bad. Because LeBron, you did not want to be included in the coaching search, as you stated, as JJ Redick is telling the media. So if you yourself said you did not want to be included, you can't pout if things don't go your way, because you, of all people, LeBron, have the ultimate power. You could have been a guy that said, I want JJ Redick or I don't want JJ Redick. You decided to be out of it, so you gotta live with the results. But that's ultimately how I feel. LeBron James' son, Bronny James, is going to be entering the NBA draft, and he's going to get drafted probably, I would say, at least late first round. You know, I'm not saying LeBron James' son is necessarily a lottery pick, even though I do think he could potentially be a lottery pick, just because there's been some rumors of, wherever Bronny goes, LeBron may follow, because LeBron ultimately wants to play with his son one day. And the Lakers ultimately could draft Bronny James as well. You know, so we'll see. But here's the thing. When it comes to Bronny James, LeBron James' son, there's been a lot of commentary and a lot of hate thrown his way. And all I'm going to say is the Bronny James hate makes zero sense. It makes zero sense. Everyone is simply hating on Bronny James for being blessed to be in a position that they wish they were in. They are mad at the world that they aren't as privileged and as blessed as him. But here's the thing. If they had LeBron James as their father, they'd be moving the same way Bronny James is moving. In fact, probably a little less mature, because a lot of, like teenage kids and 20, 21, 22-year-old adults, they're not as mature as you like them to be. There's a reason why some women go for dating older men. You want to know why? Because a 35-year-old, he's kind of got his shit together a little bit better sometimes than the classic 21-year-old who just got his official, green flag to go drink some whiskey at the bar. I think LeBron James' son, Bronny James, has handled his situation with all-time great class and all-time great maturity. That speaks to the type of person and character he has, and that also speaks to the way he was raised by his two parents, LeBron James and Savannah, LeBron James' amazing wife, But here's the thing, the average human being, if their father was LeBron James, they'd be doing the same things Bronny James would be doing. And they would be asking the question, why is there so much hate being thrown my way? I didn't do anything to these people. I'm just living my life. I just so happen to be the son of LeBron James. I'm human. I'm like everyone else. I'm just trying to live my life. And, there's always that old guy at the bar with a beer belly that probably hasn't been laid in about 3 years by a beautiful hot woman. And he's always saying, oh yeah, guys like Jay-Z, they're ugly. They got a big fat nose, big lips. How on earth can Beyonce date Jay-Z? Oh, she's just dating him for his money. She's just dating him for his status. You get Beyonce in front of me, oh yeah, I'm going to put it down. I'm going to look good. And the reality is they're just chatting. They're just talking. They're not Jay-Z. Because if they were, they wouldn't have to talk so much. They wouldn't have to chat so much, And the reality is, and it's a sad reality for some people to wrap their arms around, but some guys just have more of a better head start than others. But here's the thing. If Bronny James is good enough, he'll succeed in the NBA. If he's not good enough, he'll be out of the league eventually. Because even Michael Jordan's son didn't make it in the National Basketball Association. He didn't make it. He wasn't good enough. So you would think, oh yeah, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, a guy that has a ton of clout, a ton of status, a ton of respect, his son surely might make it, and it didn't really happen. So if Michael Jeffrey Jordan's son didn't make it, then that should tell you all you need to know about the business. So, look, I have no idea where Bronny James is going to get drafted. I'm excited to see where he gets drafted. But all I'm saying is LeBron James and Bronny James hate relating to both of their relationships. It doesn't make any sense. And who's to blame LeBron James for wanting to play with his son? If you were in the NBA and playing at a high level like LeBron James still is at the age that he is, and you had an opportunity to coach your son and play with your son in an NBA basketball game potentially, you'd take it probably in a heartbeat 9 times out of 10. There are some people that probably wouldn't, and that's fine, but I think I'm speaking facts right here. And I think most people wouldn't disagree with what I'm saying, but maybe I'm missing something. Let me know if I am, but that's how I feel. Oh man, this next conversation really frustrates me, but I have to talk about it because it seems like everyone, for some reason, is trying to shove this nonsense up our throats that the Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown-led Boston Celtics are the epitome or the representation of an all-time great super team. Now, before I get into the commentary, listen, once I saw the Dallas Mavericks were facing the Boston Celtics, I knew that Boston was going to win the championship. They're a bad matchup for Dallas, and they proved that by beating them in 5 games. Jaylen Brown, your finals MVP, you get the point. But every time a flashy new team wins the championship, and actually, I don't even think Boston's all that flashy, but a team like Milwaukee with Giannis, oh yeah, Giannis just won the title. Milwaukee, can they be a dynasty? Same thing with Denver. When Jokic won the championship, oh yeah, Nikola Jokic, he's on an all-time great trajectory. Denver's going to rattle off a bunch of championships, and both Giannis and Jokic the very next season didn't make it past the second round of the playoffs. And so the Boston Globe, recently, a couple weeks ago, was sneakily suggesting, oh yeah, the Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown-led Celtics, one of the greatest teams of all time. Newsflash, people, stop it! The Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown-led Boston Celtics are not close to being an all-time great super team. Not even close, folks. They aren't even better than the 2008 Celtics. The other Celtics team that recently won a championship, won over 60 games, had one of the best defenses of all time. I'm sorry, but I'm taking Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen over Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and the likes of Drew Holiday. I just am. And here's a list of teams I'm going to rattle off that would just smoke this Celtics team. Any version of the Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry Golden State Warriors. Any version of Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls. Any version of the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. Some people, for whatever reason, have said, oh yeah, the 2014 Spurs, they're comparable to this Celtics team. No, they're not. The Spurs are way, way better. I mean, Tim Duncan, Kawhi Leonard, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, being coached by Greg Popovich, that team is smoking the Celtics team. Not even close. Especially if all those guys are in their prime. The LeBron James Miami Heat teams, the LeBron James Cavaliers teams, the second go around when he beat the Golden State Warriors, that team is beating this Boston Celtics team. I haven't even gotten to mention Dr. J and Moses Malone and that great Philadelphia 76ers team. Pick any version of the Showtime Lakers that you want. Is anyone with a straight face going to tell me, yeah, the big bad Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown-led Celtics are even close to beating those teams? Are they going to even come close? No way, no how. Because here's the thing. All those teams I routed off, those all-time great teams, the Magic and Kareem Lakers, the LeBron James and D. Wade led Heat, Steph and KD's Warriors, all these great teams have at least one top 20 player of all time on the roster. Is Jayson Tatum on pace to be a top 20 all-time player? I mean, the 21 points per game on 37% shooting in NBA Finals, the two that he's played in, That does not suggest so. Not even close. And he has no MVP awards to his name. No MVP awards and shooting 37% from the field in the finals. Yeah, I'm passing that by. Joe Mazzulla, love the guy. I think he has a lot of potential. Phil Jackson, Steve Kerr, and Greg Popovich, they coach circles around this guy. That's not a knock on Joe Mazzulla. That's a testament to how good those coaches are. The Kobe Bryant-led Lakers in the late 2000s with Pau Gasol being by his side. I think those teams would beat this Boston Celtics team. Take any Detroit Pistons team that you want, whether it be the Pistons team that beat the super team Lakers led by Shaq and Kobe, or the ones led by Isaiah Thomas that was constantly beating Michael Jordan multiple times. You know, I'm sorry, but I'm probably picking the Detroit Pistons. This Boston Celtics team, led by Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, they're not even one of the 15 best teams ever. And we're not even talking about teams that didn't win a championship that are probably better than them. I'm sorry, but I'm taking the Stockton and Malone-led Utah Jazz over this team because they were a couple of possessions away from maybe beating Michael Jordan in the NBA Finals, a couple times. The last few years, let's look at some of those teams, Would this Boston Celtics team have beaten Nikola Jokic's Denver Nuggets? I really don't think so. So, yeah, I'm leaving it at that. Now, I understand Boston has a great resume. They won over 60 games, the net rating, the analytics, I get it. But sometimes you have to watch these games with your own two eyes. And at no point was I watching this Boston Celtics team and saying, yeah, man, one of the 15 best teams of all time. This is an all-time great team. I never once said that. Never once thought that. And I think people are just shoving this team down our throats, and they're missing the big picture that there's been a lot of great teams, even teams that didn't win an NBA championship, that would cook and smoke and beat this Boston Celtics team in a best-of-7 series. That's the reality. You know it, and I know it. That's how I feel. Couple more topics to cover today on the show. Caitlin Clark was left off the Olympic team, obviously. A lot of people are still talking about it, so I want to chime in. Now, look, I would have not been mad if Caitlin Clark made the Olympic team for the United States of America. Let me just say, people that say, oh yeah, Caitlin Clark, not experienced enough, hasn't put in enough time. I've said it multiple times. In terms of experience, the shit is overrated. It's overrated because if you're not good enough, I don't care how much experience you have. I want talented people. Experience definitely matters, but it is not the most important factor in terms of who gets job opportunities, If you're qualified for the said job and you have very little experience, you can learn on the fly. Great people figure things out. Smart people figure things out. Now, there are some people that are going to say, oh yeah, Diana Taurasi, as a rookie, she made the Olympic team. I understand that, but she was third in league MVP voting at the time. So we look at Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's not going to finish top 3 in MVP voting this year. She's just not. She's not on that trajectory. And I understand some people are going to say Diana is on the team because she has earned her kind of keeps and stay in the NBA. It's totally valid. It's very similar to Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant, his last and final All-Star game, he wasn't an All-Star level player, but it was his kind of farewell tour. He was a veteran. Everyone loves him. He deserved to be there. He earned the right to be there. Here's the thing about Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark was a borderline candidate to make the team based on her play. 16 points per game, 6 assists. As a rookie, that's pretty impressive. But she also has a boatload of turnovers and hasn't been all that efficient. So I'm okay with her missing out because she was borderline considered. She was in the borderline category. It's not like she was, so great you had to put her in there. And it was also like, okay, she's not so bad to where she has no consideration. It's okay that she didn't make the team this year. And there's some rumors and circulations that some people thought they didn't think she earned it. Team chemistry might be a little bit off just because some players seem to be jealous of Caitlin Clark. I understand it. Like I said, she was a borderline candidate. And sometimes when you're a borderline candidate, you tend to get booted off sometimes. There's multiple NBA players that each and every year are really, really good, but for whatever reason, don't make the All-Star team just because they're on that borderline tier of players that, oh yeah, maybe not an obvious All-Star, but having an All-Star caliber year. Are we going to include them? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. That's where Caitlin Clark was. So it's not something we should be in an uproar over because it could have went either way and the coin just flipped on the other side. So that's how I feel about Caitlin Clark. I do think she has a bright, bright future. She will be on plenty of Olympic teams if she continues to stay healthy and play basketball. And I'm excited to watch her career play out. But this is not too much of a big deal to me. Now, the question we have to answer is, did the WNBA make a mistake leaving her off the team? Because there's an argument to be made. Some people could have said the WNBA could have pushed to say, we have to have her on the team. And to be honest with you, if I was doing the voting, I would have put Caitlin Clark on the team. Because the WNBA could have looked at it as seeing an amazing opportunity to grow the sport of WNBA basketball. The United States of America, they dominate in the Olympics in terms of basketball almost every single year. So Caitlin Clark being on the team, I don't think it's going to sabotage the team in terms of performance. Now, when it comes to the consequences of putting Caitlin Clark on the team, the WNBA probably would have had to deal with some people that were in an uproar of, oh, she didn't deserve it, she didn't earn her keeps, she didn't earn her stay. But if that's all you have to worry about, who cares? You have critics that criticize your product all the time. What's to say a couple more people are added to that list? Who freaking fracking cares? Most people are going to tune in regardless if they're in it to watch for good or bad reasons. Everyone talks about, oh, the Kevin Durant led Warriors. Oh, I hated it. Kevin Durant ruined the NBA. The NBA Finals ratings were at an all-time high. Some of the highest rated Finals games since the Michael Jordan-led Chicago Bulls. People tune in to watch these things, even if they're saying to themselves, not much of a fan. I hate this. People watch. They lie to themselves all the time. So I do think the WNBA missed out on a great opportunity to market their brand a little bit more because Caitlin Clark would have drawn more seats to that television screen. She would have done it. And she's good enough to the point where it's like, okay, it's not like it's a glaring omission of someone if she's included over someone else. That's ultimately how I feel. I think Caitlin Clark's had a pretty good rookie season, one of the better rookies of recent in the WNBA. And I think that if I were doing the voting, I would have put her on the team. But that's something the WNBA is going to have to live with. And did they make a mistake, not putting Caitlin Clark on the team? Only time will tell. We'll have to see. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum have constantly kind of been on the pending mode of, okay, should they be separated from each other? And to Boston's credit, and to Jaylen and Jayson's credit, they've rised above this commentary of, okay, should you trade Jaylen Brown? Should you trade Jayson Tatum? Doesn't matter anymore. They're going to be together for at least another couple of years, potentially for an even longer period of time than that, and they just won the championship. Now, Jaylen Brown was named the NBA Finals MVP in the Boston Celtics victory over the Dallas Mavericks in the 2024 NBA Finals in 5 games. There's been a lot of discussion. Who should have been Finals MVP? Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum? I would have voted for Jayson Tatum for NBA Finals MVP, but I don't believe it was highway robbery that he didn't win it and Jaylen Brown did win it. Does that make sense? I think it does. To me, it was a very 50-50 situation that could have gone either way. Meaning, if you gave it to Jaylen Brown, I don't think history is going to frown on that. If you gave it to Jayson Tatum, I don't think history is going to frown on that. In fact, if you gave it to Tatum, I think people would look at it as a little bit more sensible because Tatum, up to this point, heading into those finals, was marketed as the guy for Boston. So it's like, okay, someone going through the archives of NBA history, maybe 30 years from now, they're going to have to do a little bit of research. If Jayson Tatum shoots up the all-time rankings and say, oh yeah, Jaylen Brown, Finals MVP. I got to do a little bit of my research. How did this happen? So, look, there are some years where it's pretty obvious who should be the Finals MVP. For example, Giannis Antetokounmpo, obvious Finals MVP choice when the Bucks won the championship. Same thing with Dwayne Wade in 2006 with the Miami Heat. Same thing with Nikola Jokic when he won his first NBA championship. I thought Kevin Durant, despite being on the same court with Stephen Curry and LeBron James, was the obvious best player and a deserving NBA Finals MVP. But when it comes to Jayson Tatum, you can't cry about this. You want to know why? Because you shot 38% from the field. Jaylen Brown shot 44% from the field. That's a big difference. And when both guys are averaging around the same points per game, like Jaylen Brown averaged about 21 points per game, Jayson Tatum averaged about 22 points per game, it's like, it's pretty close. So the guy that shot a better percentage and made a couple more clutch buckets, he's probably going to get the edge. But the thing about Tatum is you look back and you say, oh man, Jayson Tatum led the Boston Celtics in both points, rebounds, and assists on average. So did he deserve the Finals MVP? I mean, he had a good case, but I'm okay with Jaylen Brown winning the Finals MVP because of his defense, because of his clutch shot making. Again, I would have voted for Tatum, but I don't think it's a crime that Jaylen Brown won the NBA Finals MVP. And it's going to be interesting. Who's going to rank higher all time? Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum? My money is still on Jayson Tatum, but I won't be shocked if Jaylen Brown quietly creeps up these all-time rankings, just because I don't think he's afraid of the moment. I think that in these high-leverage moments, even though Tatum might be a more talented all-around player, Jaylen Brown seems to be the guy that rises to the occasion a little bit better than Jayson Tatum. And if he wins a bunch of championships, then there's a lot more conversations that will be had about Jaylen Brown, Tatum, and the Celtics. But I'm excited to see how it goes as time bears on. Well, folks, that's pretty much all I have today. Thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Jamal McKinney. Have a God-blessed day. Stay safe. More great content coming to you guys very, very soon. And I'm Ghost. Until next time.